Are you a parent wondering if you're doing right by your kids?
A therapist looking for real-world applications and working with children and their families?
A teacher trying to navigate educating the whole child in today's world?
Then this is the podcast for you.
Hey guys, it's Brigid,
And Jenna.
the teacher.
And the therapist.
All right, we are back.
Episode 4.
Woohoo! What on earth, Jenna, could we possibly have left to talk about?
Empathy.
Ooh.
How to teach kids empathy without losing your cool.
Okay. I'm so cool.
Yeah.
The coolest.
Yeah. Are
Yeah.
you like cold? You're
Yeah.
like on the low end of the
Exactly.
feelings thermometer that I do in sessions.
Oh, man. Okay, so teaching kids empathy
Yeah.
without losing your cool.
Yeah.
Jenna, what is empathy?
Brigid. Empathy. I think this is a big difference, right? And I think I learned growing up and as I got older, the difference between empathy and sympathy, right? Sympathy is like feeling bad for someone.
Okay.
Empathy is like feeling for or like with them, so you can kind of put yourself in their shoes. Certainly it's easier if you've been in similar shoes. But even if you can't, then like imagining that, right? Or trying to put yourself in that situation. And sometimes you truly cannot, right? Like I would argue there's situations you truly can't have like genuine empathy, and it would be more sympathy. This maybe an extreme example is like your friend like their parent dies and you have not lost a parent, or God forbid somebody loses a child or like a child dies. Okay, that's a pretty extreme thing. If you haven't been through that, that's not something that you could probably empathize with. You might be able to imagine or say, then you hear people saying things like, I can't imagine.
Right.
Because I literally can't put myself in that situation.
Right.
I cannot imagine what it would be like for a parent to lose a child or a child to lose a parent or whatever. So that would be maybe more along the lines of sympathy. Of course, you would feel awful for the person.
Right.
But empathy, I mean, a big thing with that is like how to recognize other people's emotions. Oh, they look sad. Right?
Yeah. Okay.
And what do you do with that? Of like when somebody looks sad, how do you support them? How do you like feel for them? Right.
It seems like maybe like adult to child, as the adult in a situation, we can pretty much always have empathy for what our children are going through. But we can't and shouldn't expect our kids to have empathy for us.
Sure.
Because they haven't been, they've barely been human.
Yeah.
I have a friend who just the other day told me that her kid will be doing stuff all the time. And she's like, I just have to remind myself he's still new here.
Yeah.
Like, so they don't know. They can't have empathy for us, but we can for them.
We've been through a lot more experiences than they have. Yeah. And again, kids are supposed to be selfish. They're egocentric. The world revolves around them, I love like the psych experiments that I learned in undergrad. And, some people are maybe more familiar with, but this one, I don't know if as many people, I don't know, Brigid, if you've heard of this one or like did anything with it in your education training, but people like this is young children. They think everybody knows what they know, which is kind of funny because then they think they know it all. But the experiment is like, they're in the room and somebody hides a ball. And then another person comes into the room and they say like, hey, does Brigid saw where the ball was hidden? Does Jenna know where the ball is? And the kid will say yes, because they know where the ball is. And so they only have their own like frame of reference. They can't imagine that somebody who didn't see the ball hidden doesn't know where it is.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And so those are like, that's with like real young, probably preschool age kids. And then as you get older, you realize like, no, Brigid didn't see the ball get hidden, But they're supposed to be selfish. They're supposed to like, this is what I need and I need it now, right? And I don't really care if I just made my brother cry.
Right.
Because I wanted the toy.
Yeah.
And so it needs to be taught. Empathy and like how to recognize that in other people need to be taught. Not to say that's always easy.
Right? No.
Yeah. Just on a base level, I mean, that's not easy to teach in a classroom or to teach your own children or children in your life. And then there's like additional challenges.
Right.
And so like neurodiversity is one I think of. Some brains just it's harder. They're not wired to recognize facial expressions or, be able to like feel. They might have a hard time accessing their own emotions. And so then to like recognize it in somebody else, they're like, I don't know,
Yeah.
And so I have like an exercise that sometimes I'll do with kids. And it's like, here are the situations, right? Like your toy broke, you get to go watch your favorite show, your brother just took your favorite toy, and then the different emotions. And some kids really can't.
Yeah.
They can't like relate it to like, I don't know how Susie feels. And so then you do have to kind of relate it back to yourself. Well, how would you feel if your brother broke your favorite toy? And sometimes that's a little bit easier for them to access, But I mean, and the other thing, yes, we want to teach them empathy, but we don't want to put our feelings on our kids.
Okay.
So revert to last week, episode 3, for tips on how to regulate yourself. We need to stay calm in the face of their big feelings. And we need to be like that strong, steady force so that they know, like, I'm not afraid of your big feelings.
Right.
You're not going to push me away if you're crying or tantruming or mad.
Jenna, you have something on here that's listed as like something we don't want to do.
Yeah.
And this is something that I've seen a lot in the classroom.
Oh, really?
Especially these younger classrooms.
Okay.
Teachers will say things like, it makes me really sad that you're not listening. It makes me really sad that you won't share with your friends. And I'm just shocked to see that this is a no on your list.
Yeah,
like,
this is a big no-no.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, it makes mommy sad when you do blah, blah, blah. That's a big, big no-no. Because again, kids are not in charge of adult emotions. They don't cause us to have feelings. Really, even other adults don't. And that's our common like frame of mind, right? Is like, gosh, my partner is making me so mad because they're not listening. No, they're not, right? You really don't like their behaviors. That's really frustrating for you. But like, you're in control and in charge of your own emotions. And so, yes, I am getting frustrated. I am getting frustrated that my partner is doing this, or that my child is not listening, or that the students, are running amok.
Right.
But that's not on them, right? And so, that's something that I do hear a lot, and I thought it was good too, right? Because it's kind of, I hear it a lot with like the gentle parenting that we've touched on episode 2. It makes me sad when you do that because we want to teach empathy and we think that will. But that can just really induce like guilt of like, I don't want to make
them sad.
Yeah, I don't want to make Miss Jenna sad. I don't want to make my mom sad. And so then, they might comply, but then again, similar to the clip charts, right?
Yeah.
They're acting out of shame. They're obeying out of like embarrassment.
And we definitely don't ever want to bring shame to the little people in our lives.
No.
So would you say this is a time to use those like I statements?
Yes.
Like I feel sad because what? I don't even know. I feel sad because you're not listening. Like, no,
you want to.
You.
Yeah.
But maybe I feel sad because I'm not being listened to.
Right. Put it on you. Like, I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling frustrated because I'm having to repeat myself.
Okay.
I'm feeling sad because I feel like I'm not being listened to, And that's something even in sessions, like I'll have kids say like, well, it wasn't fair. It's not fair. And I'll kind of reflect that and say like, you felt like it wasn't fair. And I had one yesterday. No, it wasn't fair. Yeah. Like it's like a fact. But I really do try to kind of reframe of like, you felt like it was unfair that your brother got to do that.
Yeah.
Because I mean that, and the thing is like, yes, that's valid. You felt that way. Yeah. That's fair.
That you felt that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that doesn't mean that it's like a fact, an observable fact. So
something that happens in my house a lot is, the kids will be fighting with each other. And I'm wondering if you can help me think of a good like I statement for that. Like, when one whacks the other one upside the head with a toy, what do I say besides, I feel sad that you hit your brother?
Right. Well, that's a big one because you do, right?
Right.
You don't want your kids fighting.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe like, I feel sad that your brother is hurt. Like, it's still that, because that is what is making me feel sad. He's hurt.
Yeah.
Because if he hit him with a toy and he wasn't sad, I probably wouldn't care. They'd be continuing to play. So trying to really get specific about it. If you're going to be vocalizing your emotions like that, being very specific about what it is that's upsetting you and that it's coming from you, not them.
Right. Absolutely. And like, why is that? Like, it maybe takes a little bit more reflection on our ends of like, why does that make you sad? Like, yes, me as an adult sitting here with you, Brigid, I understand why that would make you like sad or upset to see that your children are fighting. You want them to love each other. You want them to like grow up and be, always have each other. And so there's like deep-seated emotions in there for you.
Yeah.
And like, I'm willing to bet that your boys aren't like with malicious intent. I hate my brother. No. It's like, I want the truck.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
For sure.
Yeah. So how do you do this? How do you kind of teach this in the classroom?
So social emotional learning has been big in the classroom.
We're no longer just teaching reading and math.
Yeah.
There's more to your job
about this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we start from these youngest ages, and one of the things that we do is we play a lot of like facial recognition and body language recognition games.
That's fun.
And so in the classroom, I do this, but honestly, you could do it at home too, where like it's like charades, right? And I'll whisper an emotion to this child, and then they have to act it out for their friends to guess what they're being. And so they might be sad, or they might be angry, or they might be excited, and they have to portray this emotion that I've given them. Yeah. So then it's practice for them to like act it out, and then also their classmates or whoever else is playing the game with you, if you do it at home, would be guessing, oh, I recognize their eyebrows are down, they're probably angry. And we do go through those specific things, like the eyebrows are down, it's probably angry, or the body is like pulled in on itself, it's probably scared or ashamed or something like that. And so like specifically saying like, these are the things that your body does when you feel this. Can be very helpful for those young kids.
Oh, for sure. I do that a lot in the therapy room too, right? I love books. I buy too many of them. And I know you've recommended some to me, and then obviously I had to buy them. You got them in the classroom. I was jealous. So I bought them for my office. But I do that a lot, right? Even reading the book, like, oh, how does it look like he's feeling, right? And I do the same thing. How do you know he's mad? And sometimes in books, it's like, well, there's steam coming out of his head. Or, his face is really red. I'm like, well, yeah. I'm like, does your face ever get red when you're mad? Because those are some things, right? Like, and, with some of the cartoons, and there's steam coming out of his ears. That's kind of a silly thing. Like, oh, does steam come out of your ears when you're mad? No, but there are things. It's probably your eyebrows. Or how do you know they're sad? Well, they're crying. There's tears, on the character's face. Yeah, for sure.
There's a book that we love for this. It's called On Monday When It Rained.
You're seriously going to make me buy another book in my office?
It's such a good book. Okay. So this book has actual photographs of a child feeling these emotions.
Oh, okay. It's not like a cartoon or an animal.
It's such a good book. And it goes through and it says, on Monday when it rained, I was supposed to go ride my bike with my friend, but I couldn't. And I felt, and you see the picture, and then it's ... and you turn the page and you see sad or disappointed or whatever it is. And then we use that as a guessing game too in the classroom. You're looking at the face.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily your classmate acting it out, but just a picture of it.
Sure.
And how are they feeling? Yeah. So on Monday when it rained, check it out from your local library, because it is chef kiss for teaching facial and feeling.
Yeah. We'd also like to shout out the Stark County Library for sponsoring this event.
That's where we are right
now. For free. It's fine. They did well. Reserve this rooms. But so I use books a lot in the therapy room. I use play a lot, right? Like I have little finger puppets, I have dolls, I have animals, a lot of storytelling. And so I'll role play, and so I'll be like, you be you, like this puppet is you, and I'm going to play me, or I'm going to play mommy, or I'm going to play your friend. And, so when you come up to me and you say something mean to me on the playground, like, oh, that makes me really sad, right? And yes, in that situation, I did just use that example. Like, that makes me really sad. That would be an example of, like, yeah, a friend on the playground, they might get sad when you're mean to them or you exclude them or whatever. That's what we call, good friend behavior. Is that a good friend behavior? Is that a good choice, right? Are we making good choices? And then I'll reverse it. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to play you and you play the friend, or I'm going to play the friend and I'm going to say it to you, right? And how would you feel? So a lot through play. There's one specific game that I play. It was actually designed as like a family therapy game. It's called No Rules Kingdom. So it can be really fun to play with families, but I've also done it just individually with kids in one-on-one sessions. But yeah, imagine there was a world with no rules and kids are like, that's awesome.
Amen.
I love it.
Kids love it.
I'm going to eat chocolate for breakfast and have no bedtime. But kind of going back to like those natural consequences that we talked about in episode 2, right? Soon as we're playing this, they realize that that's not actually all that fun.
Yeah.
Right? Because if there was no rules, then there's going to be a lot of natural consequences. You're going to be tired. Your belly's going to hurt. But also, like, you're going to, like, if there's no rules for you, then there's no rules for anybody else.
Ooh.
And so they could be mean to you.
Mommy doesn't have to get up and cook you breakfast.
Exactly. Exactly. And so when I'm playing No Rules Kingdom, they'll be themselves and I'll be, their family. Or if it's a family session, right? Mommy's playing herself, daddy's playing himself, grandma's there, whatever. Yeah, same thing. So they're loving it. They're like, I'm going to have chocolate cake for breakfast. Great. How are you going to bake that chocolate cake? Because mommy doesn't want to get out of bed.
Right. Mommy doesn't have to make chocolate cake. Yeah. There's no rules.
There's no rules, right?
Yeah.
I want to go to my friend's house. Cool. I'm not driving you. I don't have to do anything, right? I don't want to do that.
That can definitely help kids learn just appreciation too.
Yeah.
And like, oh, how they are.
Do they do for me?
And not saying that our children owe us that.
Sure.
But it can help them to still learn to appreciate.
Right. Well, and that's empathy, right?
Yeah.
Of like, oh, wow, now I can see how much my parents do for me. And I appreciate that. I'm grateful that I get breakfast every morning and dinner every night. I'm grateful that my mom writes me little notes in my lecture that she knows that I like grapes, but I don't like apples.
Right. And I think as adults, we all kind of have that moment of, oh, wow, my parents really did do a lot. But
they were right.
Yeah, the amount of times they were right. But it can also be helpful to kind of help our kids start to see that empathy, like in a positive light. Like I see that this is a good thing for you.
Not just that you're sad or mad.
Right. Yeah. I see that you're excited. I know a lot of the times you'll see kids where like one's really excited about something and their excitement is kind of annoying maybe to other kids around them. And so it's like you want to keep those kids from squashing it, right? Like, oh, they're excited. That's a good thing. Like, we want to recognize good emotions too.
Right. I think you mentioned even in like episode 1, I forget what question we were answering, but saying like I'm proud of you. Are you proud of yourself? And then you'll notice your boys saying that to each other, right? And so same thing, along the same lines. So how do you do this at home? I know you said you do it in the classroom, right? With games and books and...
Yeah. At home, it is pretty similar. A lot of those games that we play in the classroom can translate to home.
Sure.
But also just those little things like the day-to-day life things. We were at a play date at a friend's house and they took every single toy out of the toy room and all that. And it was time to go. I said, okay, we need to clean up. And they were like, no, like this is not my toy room. I don't clean up these toys.
Yeah.
And so it was a good chance for us to talk about, well, if our friends came to our house and they played and things got messy and then they left and we had to do all the work, how would we feel about that? And obviously not very good, right. Or maybe we wouldn't invite that friend over again. And so if we want to be a good friend and we want to be invited, then we should help clean up their house too before we go home. That doesn't mean we actually cleaned up that much, but we had the conversation and that's what mattered.
Yep. You planted that seed. And I like that there was like, even went into consequences. I might not want to invite that friend over again. If I had to, then it's on me, right? I have to clean up this whole toy room. And we all know that that's not fair, right? When you say, hey, kids, it's time to clean up. Well, I didn't take out that. I didn't do that,
Oh, man. When we were kids, we would do, well, they got it out. Or, well, they played with it last.
Yeah.
Or
they were the one playing with the cars and the dolls. And I didn't do that. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, some of those book recommendations, just because I can't help it, I love them. We're going to do like a whole episode on them. I'm going to make you. But one is How Full Is Your Bucket? Have you ever heard of that one?
I have. That's a big one in the classroom. I love it.
I love it. And I usually do it like an art project with it. But
give us a quick synopsis. What is it?
Quick synopsis. I like it too in the therapy room because can kind of be versatile in different things. But in the book, you see like the buckets over people's heads. And so you can visually see like how full they are, right? And so somebody's like tower gets kicked, their brother kicks over their tower. It's a pretty low bucket, pretty empty bucket. If they, it's their birthday, they get their favorite treat at school, or they get an A+, then like the bucket's more full. And I like this too. And the piece, how it ties into empathy is when you can visually see that, like maybe a kid is being mean on the playground, or they're disrupting class, or something is happening. In the book, you can see that like their bucket is empty. And so that kind of helps, again, like personify things and make it concrete for kids of like, oh, not that it's okay that they were mean to me on the playground, but they've had a hard day.
Their bucket was
empty. And we don't feel good when our buckets are empty. And so they probably didn't feel very good, and they were making other people not feel so good. And then it talks about then again how to be like a bucket filler.
Yeah.
Like, how do you fill up other people's buckets?
Being a bucket filler is the big way we use that in the classroom. How can you fill their bucket? Like, yes, they maybe were mean to you because their bucket was empty, but maybe you could help them up because they fell down. Exactly. Or what can you do to kind of fill someone else's bucket?
Fill their buckets. Yeah, exactly. A similar thing, The Boy with Big, Big Feelings.
I'm not that book.
I know. That's one of the ones you made me buy. But I'm so glad because it's great. I love it. Similar thing, you can kind of see the other people's emotions. You can see like mommy has like a purple kind of swirl around her. I think literally mom is sitting at the table like paying bills one night. Book. And so again, adults might pick up on that stuff. So you can like visually see like they're stressed or they're sad or they're whatever. And so it normalizes feelings.
Yeah, it helps the boy see. Yeah, I'm not the only one who has these big feelings.
Right, exactly. And then it ends up, they're on the playground and it's like, oh wow, like all my friends have these big feelings too. Maybe they don't show it. I think it's one of those books. I want to say it's The Boy with Big, Big Feelings. It even shows like the pet, I think.
Yeah,
the dog or the cat has feelings. And another one I really liked for teaching empathy is What If Everybody Did That? And it's kind of exactly how it sounds, right? Like, I don't want to clean up my toys, or I don't want to pick up the trash that I just dropped on the ground. Well, what if everybody did that? And then we'd live in a really stinky town.
So it kind of goes along with that no rules kingdom. I might have to do that in the classroom. I'll read that book and then do the no rules kingdom game. That would be fun.
Yeah.
And you could do that at home, not even in the classroom. You could do that at your house.
Sure. Yeah. A lot of these books, I'll say, like, you can, go to your library and get them. Like, you don't need the money, or you can, like, on YouTube, a lot of times there's like read alouds.
Oh, yes.
So I'll suggest that. But yeah, I know one of the examples from What If Everybody Did That, they like sneak a bite of like the wedding cake. And it's like, well, what if everybody did that? Then there would be like,
there's no wedding cake.
Yeah, exactly. Right. For the bride and groom. Or if you take, you only get one little like finger lick, or you get only one little bite, and then everybody does that, then you don't get your actual piece later.
Right.
And you're not going to like that either.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right. How about some do's and don'ts when we teach kids empathy, Jenna?
Okay. Yeah.
All right. What are we doing? Do not. Or what are we do notting? What do we not want to do?
You're not doing.
Yeah.
This, I don't know how you feel about this one. Do not force an apology.
Oh. Okay, growing up, this was the worst for me. We would be, encouraged to apologize to our siblings. And I was adamant, absolutely not. I would stand there and stare at you for an hour before I said sorry if I was not sorry. Like, I'm not sorry. I'm not saying sorry. Right. That was a real struggle for me as a kid. So.
Well, and that's why we don't do it, right? Or that's why it's on this list, because if you hadn't been that like tenacious little girl and you would have been like, I'm sorry, and you would have said it, were you sorry? Like,
Nope.
just because you say it. And usually it's like, I'm sorry. You know, you don't mean it. And so you're not learning empathy.
Right.
You're not at all learning what the grown-ups are trying to say by, you have to say sorry to your friend, or you have to, you know, like, apologize to your siblings. Like,
and then you can just say sorry and not mean it. And then they're supposed to accept it and everything's okay.
Yeah.
But no, it's not. We don't want to teach that.
Right.
So.
You're not learning anything. You're not learning how, like, you actually feel that empathy of, like, oh, I hurt their feelings.
Right.
You're saying sorry because you don't want to get in trouble.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure. Okay. What else are we not doing?
Well, I mentioned it earlier. You make me so sad, or that makes mommy feel really sad. Right. And so we touched on that earlier.
Yes, for sure. So do not blame your children for your emotions. We've been talking about that since the first episode. Yeah. Like, your children are not your therapists. They don't need to be the one who is helping you work through that. You can vocalize it, but don't put it on them.
Right. Right. You can model the feelings, and, you know, but y'all are keeping me in business if you're making your kid your therapist, because then the young adults end up in my
then they're gonna go see Jenna too. All right, what are we doing? What are some do's for us, Jenna?
So the exact opposite, the first one, and, you know, if parents or teachers or, you know, people out there might be saying, okay, if I don't force an apology, if I don't say like, you have to apologize to your sister, what do you do?
Right.
And again, you want to model the apology and model empathy.
Okay.
So, like, this would be something like, oh, I'm sorry that, you know, you go to the child that the transgression happened against.
Okay.
Right? Instead of my son just pushed somebody at the park. Instead of going to your son and saying, you need to go apologize to that friend. You need to go apologize to that little boy. Look, you made him cry. That goes back into the, you made me sad. That makes me sad. You made him cry. Like, well, no, maybe the kid's crying because they got hurt. Yes, it was as a result of your child.
Right.
And so instead you go to the other child and you say, I'm sorry that you got hurt. I'm sorry, you know, I'm sorry that, you know, you hurt yourself when he pushed you down. Right. And because it is appropriate in that situation then to, like, reference the action.
Right. Right.
I'm sorry that you got hurt because so-and-so pushed you.
Right.
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 Because you want your kids to, like, recognize, yes, that was a result of my behaviors.
Right.
But rather than, like, making them say words they don't mean, they're seeing you maybe be a little bit more genuine of, like, and it helps them realize, like, oh, he's sad. Oh, he got hurt. And mommy or my teacher or whoever is like, feels bad for them.
Yeah. I know in the classroom and with older kids, something we do is once they kind of gained that, like, understanding that they apologize for things, we help them work on, like, good, solid apologies, right? And so not just that I'm sorry, but it's always I'm sorry for whatever it is. I'm sorry for doing XYZ because, right? So, like, maybe in the classroom with my 5-year-olds, we'll just stick with I'm sorry for and being intentional about what we're apologizing for. But as you get to those older kids, those preteens and teens, you can pull in the I'm sorry for blank because this is why I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry for stealing your toy because I see that you were playing with it and it made you sad, or something like that. That because this is why I'm apologizing can be, as we get older, more appropriate.
Sure.
And then adding another step, even as we further get older, is can you forgive me? So not just the apology, but, like, recognizing that now you've apologized and it's kind of in their hands how they're going to handle it. And can you forgive me is a good way to say, like, hey, can we mend this? Can we get past it? I can't imagine if someone comes to you, can you forgive me? And you're going to be like, nah. I cannot forgive you. I mean, maybe in some circumstances, but for the most part, when we're being asked for forgiveness, it's most of us have learned that empathy and have it in us that, yes, we will forgive them. And so they might kind of not listen to the apology as those teens. And this is especially important as adults, as grown-ups in these teens' lives. Yeah. We are doing the same thing for them. Yeah. I'm sorry for yelling at you because that was not an appropriate way to express my anger. Can you forgive me? And letting your child see that they are able to forgive you for that.
Yeah.
And that will help them understand then when someone asks them, can you forgive me, that yes, I can forgive you because I have the empathy.
Right.
I understand what it's like to be in your position.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
It's just,
yeah.
It doesn't just go with our younger kids. It goes with our older kids too.
Yeah, like you said, it kind of expands.
Yes.
As you get older.
And adult to adult.
So
adult to adult too.
Just going to bring that up. So one thing that I really is a pet peeve of mine and is not an appropriate apology is, I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings. Or I'm sorry that you feel that way, you know? And I had a family session earlier with a 12-year-old and their mom. And the mom at one point during the session said, I'm sorry if blah, blah, blah. And I corrected her. I said, no, your child said that they were hurt by that. So it would be, I'm sorry that I hurt you. I'm sorry that I did this and that caused you pain. Not if, because your child just told you that that's true.
It's not an if. Yeah.
It's not if, Or if, like, I'm sorry that you feel that way. Well, okay, yeah, I feel that way for maybe good reason, right?
Yeah.
And my feelings are valid, even if, I always say intention is not impact. Even if you didn't mean to, you did something that hurt me.
Right.
And that's another thing, right? It's like, I'm sorry. It's okay. It's okay. That's like our
default. Oh, yeah.
You don't need to say it's okay. Even if you forgive them, you can say, thank you for apologizing. I forgive you. Or this is going to take me some time, depending on how big the transgression is.
In the classroom, we do that a lot where kids will, we'll be coaching them through an apology and the other child says, it's okay. And we probably, it sounds not nice to people who don't understand what we're doing, but we'll say, no, it's not okay.
Yeah.
And it's, you don't have to say it's okay because it's not. It's not okay that child just pulled your hair.
Right.
And yes, they said sorry. That still doesn't mean it's okay.
Thank you for apologizing.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. I forgive you. Something like that. But it's okay. No, it's not.
Right.
And we don't want our children to think it's okay.
Right.
Because it's not okay.
Yeah.
And we don't need to.
Because you can't do it again.
Right. We don't need to accept those things.
You can't just do it and then say sorry and it's okay. It's not. The whole point is like, I shouldn't be doing that.
Right. It's not okay.
Yeah.
And that's why you had to apologize. If it was okay, you wouldn't have needed to apologize to me.
There's nothing to apologize for. Yeah. And going off of that, like, what we do want to do, right, is validating our child's feelings. That's teaching them empathy because they feel like, okay, my teacher, the therapist, my grandma, my dad gets me. And they're telling me it is okay to be mad and it is okay to feel sad and it's okay to not know how I feel, right? And then they learn also how to like support and validate other people too.
That's going to be a big one with those preteens and teens too.
Yep.
Is letting them understand or helping them understand that you do understand that and letting them know that, yes, I do think it's okay. Because how many times as preteens, teens, do they feel alone? Do they feel
I'm
not
the only
understood?
one.
And so giving them that you're upset and that's okay. And I understand that you're upset is just as valuable to your 14-year-old as it was to your 4-year-old.
Yeah, they need it. And I think we've talked about this. We've touched on this a couple times. We lose some of that as we get older because we think, our 4-year-old needs that. Like, you fell off your bike and you're crying. I'm going to go comfort you. But like, hey, your first breakup, like that, you thought you were going to be with that person forever. And so it doesn't matter that you're 15 or 12 and it was puppy love. Like that hurts. And so to be like, it's okay that hurts. It's okay that you're upset about that. Like, and being there for them.
And not just saying, because as adults, we can look at that and go, it so does not matter. In 2 days, it's not going to matter.
You're going to be fine.
But that's not what we want to put on our kids. They're still feeling it.
Yeah.
So validating, that if they're a big enough kid, you can say, that sucks. Like, it does. That's really hard, and understanding where they're coming from is big for those kids. And not just those negative emotions.
No.
The positive ones too. When your kid is buzzing around the house in the morning because it's field day at school. Oh, you're so excited for field day. I can tell because your body is moving and your face is smiling and vocalizing those positive emotions too. Because we don't just need to focus on the negative, sad, whatever emotions all the time too. Being happy, being excited, we can be vocalizing and validating all of those emotions.
Absolutely. Because it is okay. And like that might be tampered down in some situations, some classrooms, right? You can't be so energetic. You need to sit still. But things like that and again, being specific with like the pictures and the books and even like how you just verbalize that, Brigid, of like, I can tell that you're excited because your body's moving a lot, you're smiling, you're jumping up and down. That helps them like build that emotional identification, which is another big deal for empathy, right? Is like building so that they can recognize the emotions in themselves and in other people. Oh, they're happy, they're smiling. They must like that. They must like, or like, hey, I went and invited them to play with me and then they smiled. They liked that.
They were happy that I did that.
They were happy. Yeah. And so maybe that means I'm going to do that again because I feel good that they feel good, Well, yeah. Yeah, I think all in all, right, like we want to just kind of build that emotional capacity. That's where teaching empathy starts, for our kids. And yeah, without losing your cool, because knowing that they are going to push those buttons, And so if you need more tips on that, feel free to go back to episode 3 last week.
And we're still going back to that. We're in that survival state.
Yep.
And getting ourselves out of that in order to teach them that empathy.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because you can't teach empathy when you're in that angry, whatever survival state. So, yep, we got to be in our calm zone.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
All right. Well, we will talk to you all next week.
Can't wait.
Bye. Bye.